My hot film photography take is that Sunny 16 is bullshit. It's Sunny 11.
After leaving New Hampshire, we stopped in Bridgeport, Connecticut. Bridgeport is where you'll find this woman. You may have seen her on TikTok, Emily Swift, owner of Darkslide Film Lab.
What is up, guys? Welcome to the Knowlton. This is where Darkslide Film Lab lives, and originally this building was the Armstrong Manufacturing Company, which was water, gas, and steam fitters and tools, and it was originally built in the 1860s. So here's the second floor where there are a ton of tenants, but all the cool kids were up on the third floor.
After graduating college, Emily started this film lab when she saw a need for a dark room for her own work, and later for the photography community itself.
A messy studio is a busy studio is a good studio, so I'm trying to not apologize for it anymore. So this is the inside, what it looks like. So you can see there's the end of the film, the piece of splicing tape. So when you cut it so close to the edge like we do, there's not enough of a tail to retape another film roll on. So any like this, I'll usually save and set aside and use for re-rolling, but I haven't quite figured out how to use a bulk loader without scratching the heck out of my film. So I've kind of given up on that. That's something I'll revisit another time in my life. I'm a little too busy right now. I will photograph myself in a reflection, and this serves a few different purposes for me. A, I now will never forget what camera I shot that photo on because it's in the reflection. I know where I was when I finished the roll of film, and I have a record of what I looked like at that time in my life. This is my set, so this is where I do still hold on to pieces of my career as a studio photographer, and this is where I work. This is where I shoot. So I have this electric backdrop system, which is really cool because I have a remote and like these go up and down with the remote. This wall is always rotating. This is all my work. The majority of it is darkroom prints, with the obvious exception of the cyanotype and the color photograph.
Looking at Emily's photographic portfolio, you'll find an eclectic mix of both black and white and color portraiture.
The most successful photographs leave the audience with questions instead of answers. I don't do much shooting anymore. The film lab has kind of swallowed my photo studio half, and there tends to just be lab nonsense everywhere over here, as you can see. Here's an example of an order form. So we put a twin check sticker on the actual roll, and then one on your folder. We fill out all the information about what it is exactly that you ordered with your name, your order number, the arrival date at the lab, and these are how we process them. So this is a Jobo CPP2, and this is the Jobo we use for C41, E6, as well as ECN2. It's gonna line up here, push it on, make sure the clips are secure, and then the Jobo will agitate the take for us. When the buzzer goes off and says, hey, it's done, we lift this up, and then it'll come out the tank and down this exit tube over here into this bin, which then gets dumped. After the film gets processed, we hang it up in here. This is our drying cabinet that I actually designed and built with my dad. And then up here is a humidity gauge. So basically the air enters through these vacuum cleaner filters, and then there's a fan inside of here that pushes the air down the film, as well as a heat lamp.
Cool. I like how you said you built it yourself with your dad. That's pretty neat.
Yeah, this is absolutely a grassroots film lab.
You see a lot of roles coming through here. What are the biggest things that you see photographers doing wrong that, as from the lab perspective?
The overarching root of all of the issues come from a lack of understanding of what film actually is and what their camera is actually doing when you shoot a roll of film. When it comes to new photographers, the number one issues we run into have something to do with both loading and unloading the camera. Too many people send in a roll and it's totally blank except for one frame has all of the photos on it. They're not loading it, and it's not catching when they load it. So they don't know how to like make sure that the sprockets, they don't know how to check that that is properly engaged. So that's a big issue we see. Another thing that will happen is when they get to the end of the roll of film, instead of listening to the advance lever that's telling you to stop, like there's tension for a reason, they will force it and then rip the sprockets. And now, when they try to retract the roll, it doesn't always work.
When you are loading your film in the beginning, you want to, most cameras, especially the Leicas, you want to look at the take or the rewind lever or rewind wheel or knob or whatever, and make sure that's turning when you're advancing.
And yeah, with most 35mm mechanical cameras, you watch that little take up thing, and as you advance it, you make sure it's spinning and you're in the clear. The lack of understanding that an underexposed film photo, there's almost no way to recover it. I think when you shoot digitally, if the photo is a little bit too dark, it's fine, because a digital sensor, there's still gonna be so much information in those shadows. Whereas with something tangible like a roll of film, if it's underexposed, you actually have quite literally a void of information on the negative itself. And that information can never be put back there. A lot of people really like underexposing their film and then wondering, why is it so grainy? Why is it not like...
Can't recover the shadows.
Yeah, like how come I'm not getting those like pastel colors? And it's like, well, you underexposed it. Like my hot take, my hot film photography take is that Sunny 16 is bullshit. It's Sunny 11. Don't listen to Sunny 16, you will underexpose your film. It's Sunny 11.
Would it be safe to say with most film, even if you overexpose a stop, it's going to be pretty recoverable
100%.
as far as your highlights are
100%, unless you're shooting slide film. Slide film is the only time you really are going to run into trouble if you overexpose. C41 and even black and white film have like 7 stops of latitude. You have to really overexpose the hell out of that photo to not like to have it be unrecoverable. I had my Hasselblad on a tripod and I was using the timer on it. And so I was trying to take self-portraits of myself and a friend. What ended up happening was my Hasselblad, I don't take the best care of it, so she needs a CLA. And with the 10-second timer, what ended up happening was actually that it was open the whole time, the whole 10 seconds, instead of setting the timer and then it opening at the end. So what I thought was a 125th of a second exposure was actually a 10-second exposure.
Wow.
So many stops overexposed. Actually, there was an image in there, and it turned out to be a really beautiful image. Like it was a long exposure scan, and I was like, holy crap, there's information in here. So I ended up pulling it into the darkroom because I was like, okay, I gotta see if I could pull out that same information in the darkroom that I got with the digital scan, and I did. But my exposure time in the darkroom was 47 minutes.
Oh man.
So and actually it was one of my like favorite prints I ever made. And in my first ever solo show that I had, I sold 3 pieces and that was one of them. As an artist, I'm creating this work so that hopefully it lives on somebody else's walls and not just my studio wall.
Sure.
But then you build this emotional attachment to it and you're like gutted when you do sell it. And I'm like, no, wait, this was the goal. Like, this is what we're trying to do here. Like, it's okay.
That's a good rule of thumb to think about when you're doing something and you think it's going wrong. Just keep going with it.
Yeah.
Because it may just come out to being something, well, maybe you didn't plan it to be this way, but the eventual image you're going to get might be something you like.
Yeah, underexposure is number 2. I always tell people like, it's better to over than underexpose. Now, that kind of leads into number 3, which is like, I find a lot of newbie film photographers are shooting with disposable cameras. And so I'm always screaming from the rooftops on my TikTok, like, use the flash that you have. I'll notice like, people will use the flash, but like, the flash is only gonna work well between like 1 to 2 meters of distance. Our noses are probably 1 meter apart. So you have this times 2 of distance that flash is gonna reach, but they'll be over there there and take the picture with the flash on. Most of these boil down to a lack of understanding of the camera or what it's doing when it takes a picture. And you fire the flash, like, yeah, good job, you use the flash, but you're not within the distance that the flash is
and then you got
gonna work with it.
Inverse square rule or whatever that flashes have, that so many feet away you get the way the light drops off. And a lot of the flashes, especially some of the old retro ones, will actually have a little guide on the back, and it'll have the distances, and it'll show you like the settings. You go by them. But if you don't read that, then what's the point?
Exactly. Again, this also like kind of ties in to what I was saying before, but they'll have so much light in the background of their photo, but not on the subject of their photo, that the meter is accounting for the light that it sees, but the subject of the photo is not in that light. So like a good example is like the windows in here, right? If you want to take a picture of somebody in front of the windows and you're facing the windows, the meter on your camera is going to account for the exposure of the windows. But the person is in the shadows. So actually you need to do your exposure reading for the shadows, not the windows. A lot of people just don't understand that. It's a lack of understanding of the difference between your highlights and your shadows, and the understanding of what is that middle point that's going to satisfy both, or satisfy what is the subject of your photograph.
And I guess that dovetails with knowing the way the meter works in your camera. Some cameras are more spot meter centric, some have the matrix metering, and that would also affect the reading that you're getting. And I know since you're a Leica shooter, a lot of the Leica meters, depending on what focal length you're using, the actual metering circle changes.
What meter?
Well, see, Leica MP. Go with the Leica MP.
No, get the M4. Metering both your highlight and your shadows, and then using that information to create an educated guess on
your zone system.
What? Okay.
All right. What do you think, or what's your feelings about bracketing shots? Say you have the shot of a lifetime in front of you. It's got a lot of contrast in it. Kill a few frames and bracket it.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing, because I think it's better to overshoot something and then end up with a great image of it than to only take one photo but it doesn't work out. Would you rather lose a few frames or not have any of the shot?
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm noticing, like with my photography, I'll bracket, but it's not a full bracket in the sense. It's more, I'll shoot one at the exposure I think I should be at, and then I'll go maybe a stop above, and I'll just crack one there.
Yeah.
And most of the time, I usually never end up using it, but it's there.
Yeah, and there will be one day where you're like, dang, I'm so glad I did that.
Yeah, and actually, I haven't tried it yet, but carrying something over from digital into the film world, you do the bracket, usually sometimes it's 1 or 2 stops plus or minus the center exposure, and then putting them in Lightroom and doing like an HDR merge. I've never done that yet with film. I have done panorama stitches with film, and that's something you don't see a lot on YouTube that works really, really good.
So we have done that before.
Okay.
And the situation specifically that calls for that, which it's funny, we were just talking about this earlier, is camera scanning slide film, because I find that actually, so the benefit of camera scanning is a few different things. You get a much better color profile in a lot of cases. Like there's a lot more like color information in the sensor of a camera rather than a film scanner, as well as like the dynamic range. So the dynamic range of a modern sensor is going to be way better than a sensor from 10 to 15 years ago, maybe even 20 years ago at this point. So the last one, and this is
the last one's always a doozy. This
is very specific to beginners, is not understanding that if you can see your film is now blank. Like not understanding that film is light sensitive. Which it sounds crazy. You would think, oh, everybody knows that. But we have been sent so many rolls of film that were not retracted into the cassette and just rolled around it.
Ouch.
And it's like, there's nothing we can do here. There is like, your pictures are gone. And that sucks to have to tell somebody that. And it's always like first time rolls of film. And like the worst part too is like, you know, we have our Devon Scan series on TikTok where like we ask customers to write us a note about their experience shooting the film. I love this because it's really fun, except for when you get people who don't understand how film works and they write you this letter of, this is from my last couple months living at where I went to college and my last experiences with all of my best friends from college who I'm probably never gonna see again. This roll contains all of our last memories together, and then they send you a roll of film that's sound of the cassette.
Oh.
Good.
And the 5-second rule doesn't apply to film. 5 seconds,
No, it's like, it's quite literally like you have a fraction of a second.
Yeah, I actually had a few close calls. I was shooting a roll in my Leica M2 that I used to have, and I thought I retracted the film all the way, but apparently I didn't. I didn't rewind it all the way. And I opened it up and I saw just an inkling of the sprocket holes, and I'm like, oh, the film's still there. And I closed it up really fast, and I continued rewinding it. And there was only one frame that had a little bit of a light leak on the bottom. Yeah, thanks for taking us around. We really appreciate it. I mean, this is an amazing operation you have here. Everything is just so grassroots. You start everything from the ground up. And the thing I really like about what you were telling me and just the feeling that you gave me walking around is you really, this is in your heart.
Oh yeah.
You really care about what you do. So I think if someone's going to send you a roll of film, they know that it's going to be cared for and they're going to get the best possible quality out of it. And there's going to be nothing that's going to be like left behind.
I've definitely dedicated my life to this, and I always say, like, if you send us your film, like, we are film photographers. Like, myself and my 2 employees, we are film photographers. So we're going to treat your film like we treat our own film, because we get it. Like, we know what, like, all the nuances that have to do with deciding to be a film photographer, and we want to encourage you and do right by you. Like, we want you to get, as our customer, to get the same joy out of film that it's brought to all of us. It's really, yeah, it's something we take really seriously. If you guys want to check us out on any socials, all of our social media is at Darkslide Film Lab. Maybe try sending us a roll of film.
All right, well, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed Emily's shop here. This is just an amazing place, and I'm definitely going to be sending my rolls of film here. So get ready to see in the next coming videos what's going to be coming from me in the film world, and it's going to be processed by this nice fine lady right here. All right, we'll catch you in the next video.
Bye, guys.
So question, do you, now M4 you don't have to worry about this, but if you had a red dot, would you cover it up or not?
I probably would.
Okay.
I probably would.
And for what reasons would it be, if you mind if I ask?
Because if somebody sets out for the day as a theft, like their goal is to pickpocket people, they know exactly what to look for. They know what that red dot means. And anybody who doesn't know what the red dot means is probably not going to target you. So it's kind of like, why leave the bullseye wide open?
As you know, I did that video not too long ago where we talked about covering up the red dot, and there's a lot of haters out there that really think it's sacrilegious to cover it up. But this is another example. There are photographers out there that really feel there's some validity to it, and I can see why. I mean, I cover mine up. Just hammer it off.